extremely difficult time to prepare a balanced budget because the country's growth is very low and the pressure of both external side and internal budget deficit both are high. And one figure which basically overshadows everything is the cost of debt servicing, which it will eat out the major expenditure portion of the budget, leaving very little room to give, space for development and to give space to give social safety nets to people. So my comment is that very challenging, very difficult time. And now the government and the people who are preparing the budget, they have two choices. One is that make a populist budget and give relief to people and cut down the costs. Don't give targeted subsidies the way we have been doing in the past. It will backfire. It has never sustained. In few months' time, we will have to reverse and we'll have to go to IMF. The second is that give a disciplined budget where you cut down the unnecessary expenditure. Don't give exorbitant rise to government servants, but do have targeted subsidies for the people who are most affected with the inflation. So now time will tell that which route government takes. But on the taxation side, I'm worried that we continue to tax the people who are already taxed rather than expanding the net to services like contractors, doctors, accountants, agriculture. So we need to expand the tax net because the people who are already taxed, if you keep on doing it, so incentives for investment and economic development go low. For me, if I were, sitting in the decision-making seat, I would certainly plan targeted subsidy to the vulnerable and lower income people because they are the ones who are most hit with the inflationary pressures, particularly the food inflation. Now, I cannot continue borrowing more because, my debt is already very, very high. So I would have liked to raise money by doing a couple of things. Number one is to cut down the size of the federal government. Lots of agencies are there, and to cut down the wasteful expenditure and put it on hold, all these infrastructure projects, flyovers, roads, other things, because frankly, we don't afford it for a couple of years. Second source is the non-tax revenue by speeding up privatization of some of the state-owned industry and getting some money in my kitty. With that money, and the third is trying to tax the people who are not in the tax net. That would give me, some cushion to do development expenditure. By development expenditure, I mean expenditure on health, expenditure on education, expenditure on, building resilience against climate change. These are the challenges which we are seeing. At the same time, internal, some areas really need budgetary support. The security situation internally is getting a bit, alarming. So one needs to allocate money there. And final solution is that I would have, tried to come up with some incentives for investors to do some public sector projects on public-private partnership, hence cutting down the burden on taxpayer. That would give me some space in order to keep people happy, but also to invest in development projects so that country's economic growth revival gradually starts. At the end of the day, I would like to, get endorsement of IMF because I don't see any way out for Pakistan but to negotiate another program with IMF. So it will be very useful that seek their guidance, that what kind of budgetary targets they are expecting and try and align. In nutshell, I would not go for a populist budget because at this point in time, the country does not afford it, and the negative consequences of subsidies and government schemes and wasteful expenditure in the hope of winning election will actually do more harm to the economy than any benefit. I don't think Pakistan is ready for what we call in economics any external or internal shocks. We are still recovering from the shock of the floods. I'm worried that, as monsoon comes, we might get another spell of floods. And if, luckily we got good wheat crop, but it could unfortunately lead to a drought in certain areas as well. So one shock which Pakistan is most vulnerable is the shock of natural disasters because of rapidly changing climate in this region. And we must build resilience against it. So money needs to be allocated for houses to be built with international standards who can actually, deal with these floods and other things and rains. We also need, as I mentioned, the other shock is we are very import dependent economy. Even for essential items like fuel and pulses and wheat and rice, we do end up importing these things. So if the prices of utility, commodities go up internationally, Pakistan, which does not have dollars, what would you do? So that is another vulnerability of the country you need to. So the food security, I would actually put a lot of emphasis to have some cushion to deal with that. Third, I've already mentioned, the security situation, because Pakistan desperately needs stability. The message of stability is the only thing which can, bring some of the investments, if at all, because investment has stopped. So we need investment. We cannot continue to borrow more and more. So in nutshell, Pakistan needs to come up with some insurance schemes and others for shocks, because government cannot continue dealing with this little fiscal space with any exogenous or internal shock.